Welcome to today's video. We are going to talk about the 3 most common mistakes I see implemented in lymphatic drainage. And these mistakes, they're not necessarily going to hurt you per se, but you're not going to get the best results. And I don't know about you, but if I'm spending 5-10 minutes on a technique or a procedure, I want to make sure that I'm going to get the best results possible, especially if I'm somebody that has long-term or chronic congestion of my lymphatic system, like lymphedema or lipedema. So when I talk about these 3 things, I'm going to teach them in a certain order that's going to make sense. And you're going to want to stick around to the last one, because the last one is the one that I see being taught incorrectly all the time. And it makes me want to pull my hair out, because I'm like, everybody that is following this is not going to get the best results. And the problem with that is when we don't get good results, what happens? We quit, right? And if we quit doing something that we could benefit from, it ultimately hurts us in the long run. So I don't want you to be one of those people that are, affected by this just because you were given improper or maybe incomplete information. All right, first things first, let's decipher between 2 ways or 2 methods of doing lymphatic drainage. One is stimulating lymph nodes. So that would be like my specific 7 or my total 12, and manual lymphatic drainage, where we're dealing with the lymph vessels below the surface of the skin. Now, first things first, this isn't one of the things that I see done improperly. I just want to clear this up for you guys so that you know when you watch me or when you watch anybody, the best way to do it. So lymph node stimulation can be done over top of clothing because we're using more of a pressure and more of like a pumping motion. Okay. Whereas when we're dealing with lymph vessels, like doing manual lymphatic massage or gua sha or dry brushing, we want it to be skin on skin or tool on skin. We don't want to be going through clothing. Now you're going to see me going through clothing for certain things because it's not appropriate for me to, not be wearing clothing. And so just imagine that I am doing this skin on skin when I'm teaching you. All right. Now that that's cleared, let's dive into mistake number 1 that I see happen all the time. It is the amount of pressure that people are using when doing lymphatic drainage. Okay, lymphatic drainage is very gentle in 90% of circumstances, and I'm going to explain 10% in a minute. The amount of pressure that we want to use is the amount of pressure that you would put on your eyeballs before you see stars, before you see markings, before you see anything. And so that pressure is going to be super, super light. Same thing goes with manual lymphatic drainage. When we're doing manual lymphatic drainage, I want you to think of using a feather. When we're using a feather and we're doing manual lymphatic drainage, we're ultimately doing this like gliding motion. We're not scraping. Can you see when I push down and I'm coming, I'm ultimately like distorting the feather. So what I want you guys to do is we're ultimately doing light strokes. That's the first thing, pressure. So we're going super light. We are not digging. Now here is the instance where we may want to be a little bit more assertive with the drainage. If you are somebody that has damage to your lymphatic system, whether it's lymphedema due to surgery, trauma, or maybe you were just born with a lymphatic malformation, you might benefit from more pressure. And this also goes for individuals that have lipedema. More pressure, though, is not deep tissue, okay? That is not what I'm talking about. More pressure is somewhere between the pressure on our eyes and a Swedish massage. So we're using more constant, steady pressure when we're doing it. So it's not quite as light where my hand's like touching it ever so gently. I'm putting a little bit more constant, steady pressure while I move through that range of motion. So that is mistake number 1 that you guys now know how to correct. Number 2 is the order in which we do things. Order is so important. Why is the order important? Well, the order is important because if we move things in the wrong order, it's really not going to work. So before I tell you what I mean by that, I want you to imagine like a traffic jam, okay? If we have a traffic jam, the first car in that traffic jam has to be the first car to move in order for any of the other cars to be able to leave that spot. Plain and simple. We cannot move car number 5 before we move cars 1, 2, 3, and 4. Makes sense. Your lymphatic system is very similar. We cannot move lymphatic fluid at the end of our body before we move the fluid in front of it. Why? Well, if we're somebody that has lymphatic congestion, like in lymphedema, lipedema, or, chronic swelling, that fluid is not going to be as fluid. It's not going to be as watery. It's going to be more viscous. The longer fluid sits, the thicker it gets, okay? So we got to make sure that we're moving the fluid above the problem area first before jumping to the problem area. I'm going to clear this up, don't worry. This is why I teach the specific 7 and total 12. It's literally numbered in the order in which you're going to move things. So you would not start at number 4 if we're doing specific 7, which is armpit, before doing number 1. I see people doing this all the time. Or they will do 1 and then 4 and then 2. It's okay, that's not how this works. We really do got to go in order if we want things to move and drain. So that makes sense when we talk about numbers with specific 7, total 12. Let's talk about manual lymphatic drainage. I never want to see you doing dry brushing or manual lymphatic drainage starting at your fingers or starting at your toes. We do not start at our feet. Why? That's like trying to move car 99 before we move cars 49, 50, 51, 52, okay? If we're thinking lower body. We have to move the cars in our upper leg first before we can get to the fluid in our lower leg. So please don't start dry brushing from your toes or from your fingers if your goal is lymphatic drainage. If your goal is not lymphatic drainage and it's simply to exfoliate your skin, even if you were trying to increase circulation, I would still do it in the form of lymphatic drainage, just because circulation and drainage, lymph, they're mirrors of one another. So they do work hand in hand, and they work better when they're both working better, they're both working properly. So that is number 2, is the order in which we do things. So we always start closest to the termini, because this is where the fluid drains, and then we move away, but always moving the fluid towards our termini. All right, now here's number 3. Here is number 3. Number 3 is direction. The direction in which we move fluid. I see this happen incorrectly for a certain part of our body all the time. And the reason this is incorrect is because they're teaching to move the fluid towards the heart. Okay, not totally inaccurate. Eventually what happens is all your lymphatic fluid returns to your heart. It returns to the circulatory system, but it doesn't go to the heart. That's not where it drains. In order for the fluid from your lymphatic vessels to combine with the fluid, your circulatory system, you have to move it to your collarbones. So this is where the fluid needs to go. So what we need to do is make sure that we're moving the fluid when we're doing lymph nodes. Move your fingers in the direction of where your collarbone is, where your clavicle is. So in your head, you're coming down. In your armpit, you're coming up at an angle. In your groin, you're coming up. Knee coming up. Makes sense? We're moving up towards our termini. Now here's where it gets tricky. I want you to imagine that we're going to split our body into 4 quadrants. So we're going to cut a line down the center of our body into a right and left side. Then what we're going to do is we're going to slice our body in half right through our belly button. Our upper body is going to drain either down from our head and neck or up from our arms and our rib cage chest. It's going to drain up. Our lower body is going to drain up in our legs. But here's the tricky part. Our abdomen and our back is actually going to drain down. Now, this is important when we're doing manual lymphatic drainage, meaning if we're dry brushing, if we're using a massage technique, if we're using gua sha, we're not moving the fluid from, our lower abdomen up our torso. We're not going like this. We're not doing that. That's not how it drains. What we're doing is we ultimately need to go from our belly button, bringing it down. This fluid drains down into our groin. So, direction is important. Remember, we're not moving it to our heart, we're moving it to our collarbones, and in one instance, we're moving it down. Those are the 3 principles that when you apply them and you apply them properly, every time you're gonna get better results. So pressure, order, and direction. Let me know below. I'd love to hear if this was helpful or if you're like, oh my gosh, like a light bulb went off and you're like, this is why I might not have been getting the best lymphatic drainage results, is because I was not implementing one of the 3 principles. Thanks for being here. And if you have if you're not sure what the specific 7 is, go watch this playlist. I literally lay it out for you to explain how to do it, and it's super easy to follow. All right, thanks for being here and happy draining.